Well, even though the power was shifted this week, the vets are currently dominating the game, but all that could change next week with new alliances formed and a new HOH in place, which could change the game for the rest of the season. Hey guys, Cameron for this week of Big Brother 18, episodes 9 through 11, and I was really looking forward to this week, especially after the win last week. We now saw that the newbies were in power was no longer the vets. It was not at all anyone on that 8-pack alliance, and I was really looking forward to seeing some big moves hopefully being made. I really thought they were going to target some vets or something big was going to happen, and unfortunately not really a ton of stuff happened, but there was a lot that definitely happened. I'm talking about in gameplay-wise, not a lot happened, but in terms of events, there is a shit ton of stuff to talk about that happened this week, because really a lot went down. A lot of stuff set up for next week, though. I think that's a lot more. This was definitely one and more of those just random house guests left. You know, they meant to get out the target. Target wasn't sent out. We'll get into that in a second, but let's first get to Sunday, because Sunday, obviously, there's one key component to talk about, and that, of course, is Frank. We'll get into that in a second. I know you guys want me to talk about all that stuff that's going on there and all the controversy that's surrounding Frank and what's going on there, but let's just talk about Bridget's HOH win, because honestly, what I thought was going to happen, the worst that could have happened here, because I really was hoping that Bridget was going to prove to me that she wasn't stupid and that she actually did know what she was doing and that she secretly was really good at this game and that she was just playing dumb and that she was just kind of, well, not playing dumb necessarily, but just kind of laying low. That's what I thought she was doing, when in reality, no, she just is really bad at this game, and she's way too innocent, I think, to be playing. I've talked about this before. Bridget is the exact kind of house guest that should not be playing this game. If you are someone that's innocent and you don't want to get blood on your hands and, you know, you just don't really want to say anything rude or anything like that, you probably shouldn't be playing this game, because Bridget is the total opposite of anyone that should be playing this game, and she sucked, honestly. She's a terrible HOH, terrible house guest, and she really just should not be playing this game. That's not to say I don't like her, because I think she is a nice girl. I think she's a sweet girl, but I think she's way too, not forgiving is the word, she's way too trusting. She trusts pretty much anyone that gets into her ear. Any information she gets, she basically tries to use to her advantage, and she's definitely not someone that you would send to spy, because she definitely can't keep secrets very much either. You definitely do see that, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but basically, you know, her HOH win is pretty much Frank's HOH win. He pretty much, you know, she wins, he wins. That's kind of how this goes. And, of course, as we know, Category 4 is safe because that's just how it works and everything. But this is pretty much Frank's HOH win. He is guiding her on what to do, and we know that he's gunning for Tiffany. And I did like seeing him comfort all the girls. You know, Zakiya, Devon, they're all freaking out because they're thinking, holy shit, someone from the 8-pack did not win. We're in trouble. And Frank's just trying them to know, I'm going to tell her to put up Tiffany. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And I did like seeing that comforting side of Frank. Unfortunately, that's ruined by what happens in the rest of this episode, which is really what you guys want me to talk about. So we'll get back to Bridget's HOH in a second. Let's talk about Frank, because holy shit, is there a big change in Frank. Okay, so here's the thing with Frank for me. I said last week that Frank single-handedly destroyed his chances of going further in this game. I thought that he was going to, you know, be a target and that he was going to leave, but then, of course, Bridget won HOH, so I'm like, okay, maybe he can redeem himself. Did he redeem himself? To an extent, he did, but he definitely made a lot of enemies. I mean, he made a lot of friends this week, but he definitely made a lot more enemies than he did friends with what he did. Okay, so let's talk about what he did. So, let's first, you know, in defense of Frank, I will say, okay, so here's how this all plays out. We see Devon, Zakiya, they're all, like, exchanging insults, you know. Devon says that Frank's, like, a dumbass or whatever, and Frank just casually calls her a slut. Now, to be fair, Zakiya was the one that started this, I will say that, but Frank doesn't do this in the way where he's joking with her. He goes on and on and on and talks about how much of a slut she is and everything, and this really hurts Davon. She's not someone that likes to be, she took this literally. She doesn't like to be slut shamed. Now, whether he was calling her a slut or not, you shouldn't really just randomly call a girl a slut unless she's okay with that. I mean, if a girl has said to you, that's fine if you do that, then that's fine. But Davon and Frank aren't really that close. I haven't really even seen them in that much of a friendship. I mean, I'm sure they're in a friendship, but I just haven't really seen them that close. I'm not trying to be like Paul here, who said friendship every 5 seconds, but I just haven't really seen these two in a friendship. And things get even worse when later Frank is with Davon and he ends up slapping her ass, and this really obviously upsets her. She goes into the DR, and you know what? I was with Davon here because I know a lot of people are saying, oh, she's overreacting. You guys, I don't think understand the context of really why she was upset, because that's really what this is all about. It's not the fact that he slapped her on the ass. It's the fact of why Davon was upset and why this happened. Now, should any man hit a girl? No, I'm not saying that. I mean, if you are in some sort of like a friends with benefits thing, or you've had something with a girl and you just casually slap her, if she's okay with it, then that's fine. There was no consent here whatsoever. None. I mean, Davon never said that he could do that. She even says that she said that they were friends, but she never gave him permission to do something like that. The main reason that Davon was so upset is because she doesn't want her kid to watch this and think that that's appropriate behavior, because it's not, obviously. You can't just go up to someone and slap them on the ass. It's illegal. It is. It's illegal. It's sexual harassment, and you could go to jail for it. And I'm honestly surprised that Big Brother told him not to put his hands on Davon, because a big part of Big Brother is to not slap people and not hurt people. No kind of physical contact. Like, I mean, sex is fine. They had people have sex and things like that. But any type of physical contact, I honestly thought that Frank was going to get himself booted out of the house this week because of all the shit he was doing. But he actually didn't. But this doesn't, really obviously, this really does not go well with Davon. She's not happy with this, obviously. Zakia's really mad, and this pretty much gets everyone, the 8-pack, to turn against Frank. And honestly, I don't blame them. What Frank did, yeah, for him it was good, clean fun. And maybe where he was raised, you slap your grandmother on the ass or something. I honestly have never heard of something like that. It's his excuse is, oh, I do it to my grandmother, I do it to my mother. It's ridiculous. I don't care who the hell you do it to. It's just wrong. It really is. Unless you're in a showmance, or unless you were with someone and they told you could do that, it's sexual harassment. It is. I don't think he realized that he sexually harassed her. And it really didn't turn me off about Frank necessarily, because I never really liked him in the first place, but it really did change my opinion of Frank. I mean, I kind of thought this guy was going to go in, he was going to lay low, but I think he thinks that he's too safe. I think Frank thought that he could get away with a lot more than he could, and he just can't. You can't get away with certain things. That's something that's just not gonna go well with other people. I mean, some women, yeah, it might, but Davon's not the kind of woman that responds well to that, and he really should know that. I mean, definitely, if he had a close relationship with Davon, maybe, but it's just not someone to do that with. I don't understand why this had to happen in the first place. It really did not have to happen, but it really does change Davon's opinion of Frank. She really wants to get rid of him. Even after he apologizes, she still hasn't forgiven him, which I understand. I mean, you can, say you're sorry all you want. It's not going to change things. It's really not. And even though Frank does try to change things with Davon and try to get her on his good side, she just can't forgive him after what he did. And honestly, I don't blame her, because after what he did, it's just kind of hard to forgive something like that. It really is, especially when she's a mother. If she was single, I could understand, but she has a kid at home, and I think if she was single, like say this was someone like Zakia, I don't think she would have been, taking it as badly as Davon did. I think she wouldn't necessarily be nice about it, but I don't think she would have been as direct and as offended as Davon was, because Davon, of course, has a little girl, and Zakia doesn't. I think that's kind of the difference there. Now, yes, Zakia is kind of a showman, so that's why he wouldn't do that, and Davon's single, but that doesn't, again, give him permission, and it's really common sense. The fact that we had a whole thing about this is ridiculous. It's common sense. It's ridiculous. I don't understand why Frank thinks he can do this, and it's just as stupid as Austin walking out last season and his eviction without shoes on. I mean, it's common sense. You don't slap a woman on the ass unless she tells you to, unless she's single, unless she, gives you permission, or unless you know what kind of girl she is. Because I don't know if Frank got the wrong opinion of her or something, but that's not at all who Davon is. And honestly, I think it really showed how good of a person Davon really is. She really handled it very well. She didn't make it seem like it really offended her, but she was very direct about it. She said, don't slap me, she was very direct about that, and honestly, I like seeing the stronger side of Vaughn. She's really trying to play hard, she's really trying to do well, and honestly, I'm really rooting for her after what she did. No one should have to deal with that, but with that aside, let's get into Bridget's HOH overall, because I want to deal with all this bullshit first. It's honestly really ridiculous to me that Frank would do this, and that any of this actually happened, and that everyone is talking about it, because it happened, and am I gonna move past it? No, but I'm gonna move past it right now, talk about all the other stuff that happened, because I'm not gonna do a whole video about sexual harassment. That's just not what I do. I don't do motivational videos for you guys. If you want that, go to I don't know, Matthew Santoro's video or something. I honestly don't know. I'm not the channel for sexual harassment. This isn't Drama Alert or Big Brother Alert or something like that. Go on there, and now let's get into all the stuff regarding Bridget's HOH win. So like I said, this really wasn't much of an HOH win for Bridget, because Frank pretty much does all of her bidding. He's the one that makes every decision, he's the one that does everything for her, and she gets way too close to him, I think. I mean, he tells her right away who to put up, he tells her all the nominations she can make, and even when she was making nominations, I mean, she seems so scared. I mean, she seems so deathly terrified of what she was doing. I'm just like, why the hell did you go for it in the first place? Like, if I was Bridget, and I was so deathly terrified of making HOHs, did you not realize that when you become an HOH, you have to make 2 nominations? That's just kind of a thing you have to do. Again, it's common sense. It's ridiculous that she didn't know she had to do this, and to me, it just made her look like an idiot. It really did, and I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but honestly, Bridget really came across as an idiot this week. Just the fact that it seemed like any decision she made, she was so afraid of, she had no idea what she was doing. Now, I get that she's a little bit more tentative than other people, and yeah, okay, that's fine, but you should know that when you're a house guest, you have to put up 2 people for nominations, and I don't think that really got through Bridget's head. I don't understand why, but it's ridiculous. But long story short, she ends up putting up Paul and Tiffany. They are the nominations for the week, and there's not much campaign going on with Paul. Paul's kind of just enjoying himself right now, while Tiffany obviously is a little bit worried. But here's the thing. Tiffany, we didn't really see much of anything this week. We don't really see much of Tiffany stressing out or worrying. We hear about it, but we don't really see any of her campaigning. I'm sure it happened, but they barely show any of it. It's really interesting. Most of this week actually focused on the Spy Girls, believe it or not, which, speaking of them, the best part of this week by far, the highlights for me, is everything surrounding Natalie and James, or everything surrounding Natalie in general. I don't know what's happened, but Natalie has become probably one of my favorite house guests this season. I really am loving everything I'm seeing of her. I think everything she does it very delicately. She knows how to say things to people. She knows how to talk to people, and she's just a very good social player. I think she has a very good social game, and I really think that Natalie's going to go far. And also, her showmance with James, I think is pretty hilarious, because it's not really a showmance. It's them talking on the phone like they're 2 high schoolers, like they're just coming home from high school or something, and it's really funny to watch. I really am loving their phone conversations, and honestly, I think James has a chance. I said it before, I think James has a chance. She's into it, and I'm rooting for him, honestly. She's hot. I think she's hot. He's, definitely good for her, and I think it's about time that James definitely gets someone like her, because it definitely seems like she likes him, and I would love to see, I think out of all the possible showmances we've seen, I think Natalie and James showmance is definitely happening. Now, Nicole and Corey one I think is happening as well, but definitely Natalie and James I think is definitely happening after this episode. After this week, we definitely do see, I think there definitely is a showmance in the works between these 2 by far. But then we get to the roadkill, of course, which again is really not surprising. This roadkill was a little bit different. It wasn't a number 1, surprisingly. I don't really remember what it was. What was it? I'm trying to remember. Oh, it was like a sound game. Remember, those games where it's like, name the sound, you have to like press down on the thing? I hate those kind of games where you have to remember where the sounds are. It's so annoying. That's exactly what this was, and Frank ends up winning the roadkill, and he ends up putting up Bronte as the 3rd nominee. Why he did this, I don't know. I guess he just did it anonymously, because he thought Bronte, she was a pawn and she'd get herself off the block, which we'll get into that in a second, because he really fucked up there. But Bronte is the 3rd nominee. That's how this ends up going down. That's pretty much everything that happened Sunday. Sunday, again, was kind of just a low-key episode. There wasn't a ton of stuff going on Sunday, and there wasn't really a ton of stuff going on Wednesday either. But there definitely is stuff going on Wednesday that I do want to talk about, because it's interesting. But that's pretty much everything happened Sunday. Now let's transition to Wednesday, because I have a lot more to talk about. But like I said, this was really a very low-key week. not much happened, mainly because of how, not defensive Bridget is, and just the amount of strength she had, and the amount of defense, or better yet, lack of, really, I think, killed most of this week, and really just made it a very much of just a very uneventful, very memorable, and even though we got some really good stuff, at the end of the week, right now, was probably one of the most useless weeks of Big Brother we're going to see all season. So then we get to Wednesday's episode, which again, very strangely enough, focused on the Spy Girls. There wasn't any campaigning about Tiffany. There wasn't really any game talk going on this episode. It was mainly all about the Spy Girls. And honestly, I actually think it worked here. I think it worked. As crazy as it sounds, I think it worked here. Why? Because they kind of got you on the Spy Girls side. Now, mind you, I don't like Bridget. Bronte's an idiot, but I really do like Natalie. And I'll talk about why Bronte's an idiot in a second. Because Bronte, terrified of, going on the block. Now, Bridget has no idea why she's on the block. She's freaking out and everything. Also, I love Bridget's claim of, I'm gonna go after you, you're dead meat, whoever did this, I'm gonna freaking go after you. Like, she sounded so, it's the perfect, I think it's the perfect version of Bridget trying to sound tough, but failing miserably, because Bridget sounding tough is like, how can I compare it? Bridget sounding tough is like a little girl sounding tough. They're not at all tough. They're really not, they really think they're tough. They're not tough at all, and I think that's the best way to sum up her gameplay. I think Bridget is an exact copy and kind of starting to be a little bit like Victoria in Big Brother 16, where she thinks that she was a much better player than she was, when really she kind of thinks she's not really doing much of anything, and I think that definitely is what Bridget's going to end up becoming. She's going to end up being like Victoria, and I definitely think we do see that. There's even some shades of Daniel Murphy in her, but even Daniel Murphy, she at least knew what she was doing. She actually did do some good HOHs, but again, everything kind of went in Dan's way that season. That was a much better season than this season. This season is playing out to be very good, but anyway, let's get to the Spy Girls. You guys don't care about this. I'm trying to compare Bridget to someone I can't think about right now. Once I know, I'll know, but I just can't think right now. But then you have Bronte, who sounds exactly like Bernadette from The Big Bang Theory. Finally, I figured out what she sounds like. That's what she sounds like, is Bernadette from The Big Bang Theory. But anyway, Bronte here, she obviously is very worried that she's gonna leave, and she ends up telling both the Spy Girls that she is a genius, as she puts it. She's a genius. She thinks she's gonna work for the NSA, maybe work for James Bond or something, maybe be, I don't know, like in the government or something. I honestly don't know. Her version sounds like a TV show, like Numbers. Remember that show on Netflix? It sounds like Numbers. That's what it sounds like. She wants to use prime numbers to solve things for the NSA. It really is just absurd, honestly. Bronte's an idiot. She really is an idiot. I mean, one, why would you tell them that? There was no reason for you to tell them that. I mean, you didn't risk, there was no reason for you to tell anyone that, really. I don't know why she decided to tell them that. Two, you're not smart. You're really not that smart at all. I think the fact that Bronte thinks she's smart is pretty hilarious. She's not really smart at all. She hasn't really done much of anything, and she hasn't really used her numbers to her advantage, and I really doubt that she's that good at math, because we saw in the second competition, she's not that great, and I highly doubt that she's going to be working for the NSA. I mean, maybe she is good at math, but I highly doubt she's going to be working for the NSA and, like, in a James Bond movie or something. I doubt that that's going to happen to her. But basically, the Spy Girls actually are happy about it. They think that they're smarter because of it, and I think that was really just their way of kind of accepting her. That's kind of how I took it, that they think they're just, they're kind of accepting what she said and everything. Because I think Natalie knew kind of that Bronte, it's not really that big of a deal what happened, because it really wasn't that big of a deal. Although Natalie's not going to be very happy with what Bronte does next, which I'll get into. But basically, all the Natalie and James stuff is continuing this episode. I'm really, like, seeing it. I think it's just really cute overall. I said on my Twitter that they probably have really good phone sex, because that's literally all they're gonna have right now. I mean, it doesn't even seem like they have a real showmance. It's literally through a phone. I'm assuming that they have somewhat of, like, phone sex throughout the night, which must be really awkward. I'm just assuming that that's what they do, because that's what it seems like to me, that it seems like it's a phone relationship. Eventually, they are talking on a bed. I'm like, all right, they're actually having a real conversation here. But right now, it kind of felt weird the way that was done. But then we get into this whole thing with Bronte and James, where Bronte is asking James questions about, she's asking James questions about the game and everything, and what he's going to do and his decision. And this is probably the worst time you could talk to James, because literally she's changing right in front of him. And I don't know if she was trying to seduce James, but Bronte is literally one of the ugliest people. I'm gonna say right now, Bronte would be a lot more attractive if, one, she didn't look like a 5-year-old, and if, two, she didn't sound like Bernadette from The Big Bang Theory, because when you talk about Bronte and attractive, it's like talking about a little girl and attractive, because she just isn't at all. And just James looking at her wasn't a look of enticement, it was a look at what the fuck are you doing? Like, why would you change in front of him? I don't know what she was trying to do here. I don't know why she was doing this, and I'm gonna be like James. I don't know if this was a strategy. I would have done the same exact thing that James did. I'd be like, I don't know, I can't talk right now because why would you change in front of him? I mean, he's got something going on with Natalie. Now, mind you, Natalie and Bridget, there is stuff going on there where Natalie doesn't trust Frank, and Bridget doesn't trust James for some reason. I don't know why, but Bridget doesn't trust James. It's really ridiculous as to why, but that's what's going on there. So we don't really have anything going on with Natalie and Bronte, but I thought there was going to be some sort of fight going on there. But luckily, James is smart. He doesn't really say anything. He does, in fact, tell Natalie about what's going on, that, what's going on with Frank and everything, and that how he wants Frank out, and, I don't remember if he told her that he does actually tell her, he doesn't say specifically that Frank was the roadkill, but he does say that, hey, it's not Michelle, it's not Zakiya, don't think it's them, so she basically gets the idea that it's Frank, and when Bridget finds out, is probably one of the most unexpected things said all season, also one of the most idiotic, and really just shows how dumb of a person Bridget really is. Because when she finds out that Frank won the roadkill, she doesn't say, oh, why would you do that? Why would you put a Bronte? She says, thank you for that, actually. So I honestly don't know. I mean, Frank, whatever has happened, he's got Bridget wrapped around his little finger. I mean, he clearly is making every decision. I mean, there's one point where she wins the POV, which was Outback Steakhouse, which I really, really wanted steak after watching this episode. Like, I've never wanted steak more in my life than watching them play this POV. But he literally ends up injuring her, shoulder butts her, she goes down, her, ankle is broken now, and, again, she's not mad at Frank. She's not mad at Frank. It's really ridiculous. He says, oh, I pounce people all the time. Frank, you're not a little boy. You're not a little boy. I know you think you're a little boy, but you're not a little boy. You're also the oldest in the house, and you're not a little boy. You need to realize that you're not a little boy. You are, 30-something years old. You need to be put in your place, and luckily he is in tonight's episode, which I'll get into, which is awesome. But really, this again, was just common sense. Frank had no reason to do this. I don't know why he thought he needed to do this. You're not a little boy, and you need to realize that, because it's ridiculous that he actually thought he was. But let's get more into the POV. Because what Bridget could have done here is go against Frank. That's what I would have done. I would have taken Bronte off the block, but then, of course, she knows that Natalie's going to go up. So it is kind of a difficult situation here, because she doesn't want Natalie to go up, but Natalie's not a target. Natalie's not disliked by anyone. Nobody is coming after Natalie. Nobody. There's literally no one that's going after her, and I think she, like I said, is doing a really good job. She seems to be very close to a lot of people. No one seems to be coming after her right now, and basically, she's kind of worried that if Natalie goes up, then she's going to go home. So basically, what ends up happening here is Bridget does the logical thing, which is do nothing. She does nothing. She doesn't take anyone off the block. You're on the block, nominations stay the same, and again, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that she decided not to do anything. It's ridiculous that, again, she listened to Frank, and also, Bridget is now cheating on, I believe, her boyfriend, because she said to her boyfriend she's not going to lie with another. Well, I heard this from Rob as a podcast, so I don't necessarily know if it's true. I think it's true, but I don't think they lie on there. I trust Rob Sestardino and those people for sources of Big Brother, so I'm just going to say it right now. Bridget has a boyfriend who's a doctor, which is the thing that she revealed, by the way, and she told her boyfriend she never lied with another man, and now she's with Frank. It seems like these two are going to end up in a showmance. I think something's going to happen there. But that's what ends up happening on Wednesday. Like I said, very uneventful stuff until we get to tonight's episode when a lot of stuff is going down, and a lot of stuff does actually, in fact, go down. I really do want to talk about it, because this is when stuff gets really good. So as much as I like the whole Natalie and James stuff and everything that was going on there, because don't get me wrong, I'm loving their segments. I mean, they're very cute together. Natalie's very hot, so she's nice to look at. Then you got James, who consistently makes me laugh and is really impressing me this season. I think he's doing a much better job than I anticipated he was going to do. But as much as I do like that, the number one thing I want Big Brother is gameplay. I want to hear gameplay. I want to hear strategies. I don't want nothing going on. And as much as I like the Spy Girl centric episode, it's not really the ideal version of what I want this show. I want stuff going on, and this episode actually a lot went on. There's a lot that happened here. Basically, I heard this was all done wrong, so I'm not going to say actually what happened here. Basically, 8-pack or what's left of them, so say Nicole, Michelle, Zakia, Davon, and James, they basically want to flip the vote. They think that Tiffany shouldn't go home because they feel they can use Tiffany to get Frank out. That's the best way to do this. If they get rid of Tiffany now, then they can't get Frank out. And the best way to do that is, in fact, to get Frank out. And that's what they decide to do. They decide to, basically, they're going to try to flip the vote and try to get Bronte out. They think that's the best thing to do because Bronte would not vote Frank out while Tiffany would. I think overall, that's very interesting what's going on there. But obviously, they knew they had to get some votes. They went to Nicole and Corey. Now, I wasn't really sure what Nicole was going to do here. Nicole's starting to piss me off a little bit, though, guys. I'm not going to lie, because I like seeing Nicole very innocent and just very much not really knowing what to do and lying low. But if she's going to keep going back and forth between, do I do this, do I not, do I do this, do I not, it's really going to piss me off because it's really not that hard. I mean, it's either you're safe with Davon or you're not safe with Davon. You're safe with Frank or you're not safe with Frank. That's not hard at all. It's really not hard at all. It's not hard what's going on there. And I don't really think it's that hard of a decision. She's making it a lot harder than it is. And she just come to a decision, really. Come to a decision. It's not hard, and if Nicole is going to continue doing this back and forth stuff, it's really going to piss me off. Honestly, I think the best strategy for Nicole is to go away from Corey, because Corey really is not the best person for Nicole to be allied with, because if Tiffany leaves, the next person they're going to come after is Nicole and Corey, because they are a power couple right now. I don't know if they're dating per se, but they're definitely working together, and people are going to definitely come after them. So I think she needs to get away from Corey and try to work with Davon and those people. But she decides to make a sub-alliance with Frank and Bridget, which I thought was smart. I thought that was smart. It keeps targets off her back. They think they're working with them. I think it's definitely smart. But I recall in Big Brother 16, when Hayden and Nicole made an alliance with Zach and Frankie, and then they just abandoned it, and they didn't even make it a name. And once again, just like this, they don't give it a name. So I really don't think this is real. I don't think Nicole's really as safe as she thinks, and I thought she would have learned from her season, but apparently she didn't. So I don't think this is really going to end well for her at all. I think Nicole definitely could honestly be in trouble next week, and we'll have to see what happens. I don't know if she's the number one target, definitely, but I do think she could be in trouble moving forward, definitely, if she continues to do this back and forth stuff. But anyway, that's pretty much all the preparation that happens. Let's get into the overall stuff that did happen when it came to the live vote. Alright, so this was the first live vote where I had no idea what was going to happen. Last week I kind of had an idea that Tiffany might leave, but this week I had no idea what was going to happen. I thought, okay, so they want Bronte out, but we know the rest of the house might not want her out. So are they going to get Paul out? I mean, I honestly had no idea. Tiffany's speech pretty much confirmed what was going to happen. I mean, this was awesome. We get to the eviction speech, and Tiffany literally just chews out Frank, says that he is the dictatorship, he's running the house, and need to stop allying with him, and the second she said that, I'm like, they're going to flip the vote. That's what they're going to do. They're going to flip the vote, and that's exactly what happens. Now, at first, I thought they're going to get her out, because it seems like the majority was getting her out, but it was actually very split, and this rarely happens in Big Brother, but it was actually very split here. I thought it was going to come to a tiebreaker, literally luckily it didn't, because Bridget would have just done what Frank told her to do. But long story short, Bronte ends up leaving, and honestly, I'm fine with her leaving. I don't really care who left. I honestly didn't really care who left here, because I just want to see it play out. And right as she leaves, hell breaks loose. We see people are upset. People are walking away. Michelle's pissed off for some reason. I don't know why, but she doesn't want to talk to people. People are just scattering, and everything is pretty much going to be chaos now, and I really do love that. Bronte saying that her fatal flaw is to not ally with Jose and Victor. I mean, yeah, I'd agree with that. That is definitely her fatal flaw. But another fatal flaw is to think that she's smart, because she's definitely not, and to think that she's gonna work for the NSA. I think that's her main problem. Is that I think she went in this house thinking she was gonna be a lot more powerful than she was, and she really wasn't. And I'm sorry, but Bronte, she's not smart. She's not smart. I'm sorry. I think that she's very nice. She seems like a sweet girl, but she's just not very smart. I think she's kind of dumb, and that's the best way I can put it. But then we get to the HOH competition. And by the way, guys, next week is the battle back, which I'll get into. But the HOH competition then takes place, and it was one of those memory kind of competitions. And Paulie ends up winning, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing, because that means Frank is safe once again. And category 4 is, of course, all safe. So Michelle and Bridget, they're safe. And most likely, I'm thinking that Frank's going to try to get into Paulie's ear. The question is, will Paulie actually listen to Frank? Because he did, in fact, vote out Tiffany. So I'm wondering, was that a hinky vote, or did he actually just vote her out? Did he just do it to get people to accuse everyone, or did he actually genuinely want Tiffany out? I mean, I don't really know what Paulie wants. Paulie seems to do whatever he thinks is right, and honestly, I really am liking what Paulie's doing. But if he starts listening to Frank, then I'm really going to have a problem, because if everyone starts listening to Frank, then this just isn't going to be interesting. It's going to be the Frank show, and that's the thing I don't want. I don't want this to be the Frank show. I want this to be everyone kind of going their own separate ways. Bridget and Frank, they can stay together. I don't really care what happens there. Bridget's an idiot either way. She's really dumb. She should not even be playing this game, but I don't make the rules. Basically, Frank should be booted out for what he did, but Paulie's now HOH. Things are going to hell's going to break loose next week. Let's just get into it, because that's basically how this week ends. Let's get into next week. So there's a lot going on for next week. I mean, you got pretty much half the house targeting Frank and half the house targeting Davon is kind of how I see it, because it was very half and half. I think there's a good amount of people that want Davon out, and there's a good amount of people that want Frank out. Bronte even said that she only got this information and what was going to happen to her 20 minutes ago. So it seems like things were really undecided. And I watched part of Big Brother After Dark. Things were definitely very undecided. They really did not know what they were going to do. And I get that, because there are a lot of things that could happen here. I mean, their whole plan of trying to get out Frank, it's failed. It's not happened. Now, let me just say, I think this is probably the best scenario because of the battle back competition. Frank most likely would have been the most likely advocate to come back. He would have been the one to come back, and I like that he's not the one coming back, because instead, I think he should leave on a double eviction, because then he can come back into the house, he can leave, he can go to the jury, and then I think he's good. If he joins the jury, that's perfectly fine. Put him right, honestly, I think he should leave right when he did in Big Brother 14. I think that's the best time that Frank should leave, is when he left in Big Brother 14. I believe he left in a double eviction that night, and I think he should leave in a double eviction tonight. Not tonight. I mean, I think he should leave a double eviction this season as well. I think it's the best time for him to leave. But again, I don't make the rules. We'll have to see what happens with that. Now, as far as Paulie goes, what is Paulie really going to do here? I just really hope he doesn't listen to Frank. I hope he makes his own decisions. I hope he does what he thinks is best. I'm really thinking he's going to listen to Zakia, because him and Zakia are pretty close right now, on the verge of in a showmance, and I'm hoping that goes well. Natalie and Bridget. I think Natalie and Bridget are going to end up turning against each other. I really don't see these two working together without Bronte, because it was always Natalie and Bronte. Those two were the ones that came up with it. Bridget was kind of always the third wheel. Bridget is terrible at this, so I'm pretty sure the Spy Girls is dead. I don't really think it's going to happen anymore, and I'm thinking that Natalie's going to ally with James. Now, James voted out Tiffany, so I'm thinking that James really isn't with Davon and all of them right now. He's with Natalie, definitely, and I think he definitely is going to listen to Natalie's word over Davon's, and I think it's the best spot for him. I think Davon is a huge target right now, and I think the best thing to do is to not be allying with Davon, because Davon really has made herself a target. Even though she was standing up for herself, to be fair, she has made herself a target, and it really isn't a good spot to be in right now, definitely. So I don't really know what's going to happen there. We'll have to see what happens next week. But also, next week's the Battle Back competition, guys. And who do I think is going to come back? Right now, I'm going to say Victor. I'm thinking Victor is going to be the one to come back out of everyone. Also, those pictures of Jose, Glenn, and Victor were hilarious. Imagine if Glenn comes back next week. I honestly could see that happening. I think it'd be very funny if it did happen, where Glenn could come back. I mean, that's the equivalent of Jody coming back in Big Brother 14, which the amount of times they've referenced Jody, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if she did come back one season, just because I feel like they want her to do well and she wasn't. But overall, guys, that's it for my thoughts on this week. Let me know what you guys thought this week overall. Kind of a low-key week, but definitely a lot lot of stuff going on for next week. Really, I think it's anybody's game next week of what's going to happen. As far as Nicole, like I said, I'd like Nicole a lot more if she just really makes her own decision. Is she going to ally with Frank or going to ally with Dave Vaughn? Is this alliance with Frank real? Is it a sub-alliance? I don't really know. I think she really just needs to get away from Corey because it's not a good spot to be in, but then, go with, like, James and people like that, and then I think she'll be fine, but we'll have to see what happens with that. But over, guys, how much you guys thought this week. Love to hear your thoughts on it. What do you think of this whole sexual harassment thing? Sorry I went on a whole tangent about it, but I just had a lot to say with that, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of Queen of the South, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.